What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Wildcat Cave. Kentucky has once again went on the road and embarrassed themselves. They traveled to Tuscaloosa to take on Nate Oates and the Crimson Tide of Alabama, which resulted in a 26-point loss in basketball. So today we're going to talk about what in the world is wrong with Kentucky basketball, can it be fixed, and is Calipari leaving for Texas? Also, next week, January 18th, I will be hosting another live stream here on the channel at 8 p.m. The last one we did went really well, and I'm really excited for this one. It will be right after the Tennessee game and right before Kansas, so there should be plenty to talk about. So remember, that is next Wednesday, the 18th at 8 p.m. Now let's get into the video. Kentucky basketball, as we've heard over and over, is supposed to be the gold standard of college basketball. But recently, we just haven't been. If we ever get to a point when we can accept losing 5 of our 6 biggest games so far, then this isn't Kentucky. Right now, we're at a point that we expect to lose these games, and that is just unacceptable. And here are my issues with this basketball team. The biggest issue, number one, is that we have no dogs. This is something we've talked about before, and a lot of this is we just don't have dogs, the guys that want to get in there and fight, and that is not like Calipari teams. In the Alabama game, we saw that they just gave up. Everybody on the court just completely gave up. The only guy who really played okay was Xavier Wheeler. Everybody else gave up. There was no dogs. It doesn't even seem like Lance, who I mentioned before when I talked about having dogs on the team, Lance was the only one we had, and he doesn't even like to get in guys' face anymore. He doesn't like to get in there and bang like he used to. I don't know what it is about this team mentally. They just don't have that Calipari team mentality that we've gotten so accustomed to. If this team wants to do what it has to do, especially when shots aren't falling, these guys have got to get a little bit of that dog in them, and I don't know how they do that other than just deciding that they want to be that guy. Another thing that we've talked about in the past is I just don't think that these transfer players are as good as the 5 stars. And this isn't just a Kentucky problem. We see this across the board in college basketball right now. Duke isn't very good. North Carolina's been underwhelming. Kentucky hasn't been very good. And it just so happens that this all lines up with the transfer portal. To me, elite programs need elite players. And so far, we've seen that these blue blood teams just aren't as good with transfers. Cal is the best coach in the country when he has elite players on his roster. Elite freshmen, in my opinion, are just better than these 4-year guys at these lesser programs like Iowa and Illinois State and Creighton. And all of these guys who can be good 5th and 6th options, they're just not those elite freshmen. And I think as the transfer portal goes on, we're going to come to see that. I think Baylor was a little bit of fool's gold a couple years ago when they won the title with a team full of transfers. And that kind of made everybody think, hey, maybe this is the way to do it going forward. And what I think we're finding out is these young 5 stars are still better than 4-year players. There's a reason those guys are 4-year players and not one and dones, and I think we're finding that out. Number 3 is I think that there might be some locker room issues. If you listen to KSR again, Matt Jones alluded to some possible problems. He kind of more or less said that he's heard some things that may or may not be true. If you are familiar with KSR, you know they're not as close with Cal as they used to be. But he said that there may or may not be some things, behind the scenes and off the court that are causing some of these issues. But overall, it's clear. You don't need Matt Jones or KSR or someone to tell you that. Watch these guys on the floor and on the bench. They don't get excited for each other. If somebody has a huge dunk or something like that, the bench is silent. They sit there, yay, and that's about it. Nobody gets excited for the other guy anymore, and that is a real big issue. It's telling that there's some off-the-court issues. And again, Oscar came out and said, we had a talk with Coach Cal. In my last video, I talked about this too. There was this supposed heart-to-heart meeting that the team and the coaching staff had to get back on the same page. Oscar even came out publicly and said, yeah, we asked Coach to be a little more positive and not, scream as much. And against Louisville, it seemed like that was exactly what happened. Cal seemed relaxed on the bench. There wasn't a whole lot of screaming. Then Oscar came back out after the game and said, yeah, that's why we played so well. Severe kind of said the same thing, that coach had calmed down and made the guys feel a lot more comfortable. And of course, that's more of a compliment to Cal to say, these guys came to me and I listened to them because this team needs coach different. But instead, Cal came out and said, nah, that didn't really happen. When I believe, like I said, these guys were trying to pay him a compliment. And Cal took it maybe as a personal shot when the media asked him about it and said, Oscar says a lot of things. That's not what happened. I just stopped yelling as much on the court. I still coach the same way I've always coached. I don't think that was a smart move from Cal. He should have, if that meeting did take place, and I have no reason to believe it didn't, especially when you have guys like Oscar and Severe come out and say that it did, the smart thing to me for Cal would have been to say, yeah, hey, these guys did come to me. I was being too hard on them. They don't respond well to that, and I had to take a step back and reevaluate my coaching. But instead, he doubled down, said, I do what I always do. I'm going to coach how I always coach, and that's just how it's going to be. So that was disappointing to hear from Cal. Maybe what Oscar and Severe said is true. These guys can't be pushed hard like some of his previous classes. And that kind of brings me to my other point here. This is a working theory that I've kind of been starting to develop this season. And the theory is that maybe Cal is just a one-year type of coach. And I don't mean for the program. I think he can be at Kentucky as long as he wants to and be successful. What I mean by a one-year coach is that maybe he's only effective with players for 1 year. He coaches these guys extremely hard. He really gets up in them. He yells and he screams and he's in your face and he pushes you. And to use his words, he holds them accountable, which is all really great things. But I think that can really wear on guys after a year. Especially the kind of this, not to be a boomer or anything, but this new age of player, I don't think they respond as well to that hard-nosed coaching like maybe a Cousins or a Wall or some guy like that did. These guys need more positivity, and it's clear they've said it. And I think that Cal could, if he's going to be stuck in his ways, maybe he is just a 1 year per player coach. Like I said, it wears them down if they're there longer than a year. But this would also explain why elite players love him. These one-and-done freshman guys that Cal gets love him. They come in knowing he is going to push them and he's going to coach them to get them ready for the NBA. But what happens with guys who aren't NBA ready? Maybe he wears on them too much and coming back for a second year and then a third year. It's just, it wears on these guys mentally. You see guys like Keon Brooks who looks insanely happy. Wenyen Gabriel a couple years ago came out and all but bashed Cal publicly. These guys that stay here for a long time usually don't seem to work with Cal, and maybe it's because he wears on them just so much. And I think that would also explain a lot of the disconnect between Cal and the team we have now, because we have a lot of returning guys, as well as why maybe he gets good players in the portal, they just don't pan out here. Maybe these guys are used to being coached a certain way for 3 or 4 years, come to Kentucky, and it's like a culture shock, and they're being coached harder in a different way than they ever have before, and it just wears on them. You see shooters missing open shots. I think it's all mental, and it could be because Calipari is a 1 year coach, at least for the players. I think he could be great, as he has been for Kentucky long-term for our program, but he just has to have those guys that are in and out real quick, or his coaching style is just too much for him. And then the final topic, and the one that's been everywhere the past couple days, is Calipari leaving to go to Texas? Texas obviously fired Chris Beard for the reasons we mentioned a video or two ago. So it's an unfortunate situation for Texas, but here's the thing. Texas is a high-profile school. They're not a blue blood like Kentucky, Kansas, Duke, North Carolina, but they have money. They invest in their athletics a ton, and this could potentially be something to watch out for. All of the rumors say that Texas hasn't reached out, or Texas has reached out. Cal was on his post-game show the other night, or his Monday night call-in show, when he was asked about it. He said, basically that I haven't seen him line. He said he hasn't talked to him, which of course he hasn't talked to him. They wouldn't go directly to Cal. They would go to his agent. So yeah, maybe he directly hasn't talked to him. The athletic director for Texas also said they hadn't talked to him. Again, it might not be that athletic director that would make that phone call. Usually schools like that have committees that go out and try to find the best candidate for coach. So maybe it was that committee and Cal's agent, and now Cal and that AD aren't lying. But I do think that this is a possibility. Most of the time, you hear this every year, Cal to the NBA, Cal to here, Cal to there. You hear this a lot, but usually we don't put a lot of merit into it. He has a lifetime contract. He's at the best school in college basketball. Why would he want to leave? This is the first time I think there's some credit to this. If you saw Travis Branham, he's been a longtime reporter. I think he works for 24/7. He's usually a pretty reliable guy. I don't think he's the type of guy that just says stuff on a whim or throws stuff at the wall and see what sticks. Usually pretty reliable. He kind of posted on one of the message boards for Texas, says, hey, I live in Lexington. There's a lot of disgruntlement here between the fans, the program, Cal, the team. There's a lot of stuff moving here, and he has heard that Texas has reached out to Cal and that it is a real possibility Cal leaves after this year for Texas. Again, to me, you just got to be careful, man. I caution all of Big Blue Nation to be careful what you wish for on this one. Cal is still the best coach in college basketball right now. I get it. We're not winning. It frustrates me how we play. His offense frustrates me. A lot of this, the losing frustrates me. But you got to be careful, man. I'm telling you. There's no guarantee the next guy is a home run hire. And on top of that, we currently have 5 of the top 20 dudes. And then you have Ron Holland, who is at Texas already, one of the top players in the country, who may or may not decommit. But I'm telling you, if Cal goes, we lose all of those dudes. All of the top 20 players, maybe minus Reed Sheppard, are gone. Kentucky will be rebuilding from the floor, and it's guaranteed. Those dudes, I know a lot of our older fans like to say, this is Kentucky, we'll still get recruits, we'll do this. It's not true. I'm a huge Kentucky fan. We tend to believe that because we grew up. We know what Kentucky basketball means to us. These 4- and 5-star dudes all across the country, they like Kentucky, they like the brand, they like the prestige. They come here for Calipari and Calipari alone. They come here to be coached by the best and to be in the NBA. Now, does that mean we won't have a good class? No. Does it mean that we won't have a good coach? No. But there's no guarantee we have that home run hire, and there's no guarantee that they bring transfers in that can win. What I can guarantee you is that whoever we would get as coach and whoever they would bring in is not going to be as good as that class, and Cal would have immediate success. I'm telling you, listen, he takes Aaron Bradshaw, DJ Wagner, whoever else, the other guys I can't think, and he takes them to Texas where Ron Holland then probably stays. I'm telling you, he's going to have immediate success, could potentially win a national championship in his first year at Texas, and then Texas joins SEC and we have to coach against that every single year. Be careful what you wish for, guys. I understand the frustration with Cal. I really do. Him leaving to Texas is not something we want, and for the first time in a long time, I think it's a possibility. I don't think Mitch is gonna wager with Cal again like he did before. You know, last time Cal said, I'm going to UCLA if I don't get this, this, and this. And Mitch gave him everything he wanted and then some, including that lifetime contract. I think this time Cal's only leverage point is going to be, I want that indoor practice facility, or I want to be paid more than Mark Stoops. And I don't really think Mitch is going to bargain with him. I think he's going to say, Cal, I've given you a lifetime contract. I've given you everything you've asked for. If you want to go to Texas, have a good life. And that's just on top of their other disagreements that those two have. So I'm as a final statement here, I am warning Big Blue Nation to be cautious about what they wish for when it comes to Calipari leaving. Or maybe this is all big publicity stunt for Cal to get the fans back on his side. I hope that's what it is, honestly. That is going to wrap up this video, guys. Let me know down in the comments, what do you think about Cal going to Texas, or will it happen, or would you even want him to? And also, don't forget, next Wednesday, January the 18th at 8 p.m., we will be hosting a live stream where we will talk about Cal to Texas, the Tennessee basketball game, and everything else going on in the world of UK sports. Make sure you're subscribed and you have that notification bell clicked so you don't miss it. And I will see you guys next week on the live stream. Go Cats!